Hello and welcome to the first ever solo episode of Let's Grow Together. And today I'm going to be talking about my morning routine and why you should consider implementing these things into your daily activities. Now, real quick, first thing, today's episode is sponsored by Digital Champions, teaching businesses how to create and implement video and social media marketing strategies. There's my pitch, how to do it. Let's dive in, shall we? So, I really wanted to talk about this because it's something that I talk about so often. If you're following me and you're following my stories and you're seeing what I'm doing, if you've listened to previous episodes, I've touched on certain things of what I do, and I really wanted to talk about kind of my journey of how I got to the morning routine that I'm in now and the benefits that I've seen from implementing it, and kind of the reasoning behind implementing many of the things that I do. So one of the things, when I first started trying to incorporating journaling into my morning routine, it came from Tim Ferriss. He wrote the 4 Hour Work Week. If you've ever heard of it, it's a great book. And he recommended the 5 minute journal. And the 5 minute journal was really great for me because it was really simple and easy to kind of get started into the journaling aspect, to really just getting started in doing it. And basically it just gives you some simple prompts that you can get started. So basically it starts off with like a quote, which is always kind of nice to start your day with some type of positive quote from, someone that's famous, or it could be something from a movie. I just happened to open up my 5 minute journal, and it says, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it." Ferris Bueller. So, fictional character, but nonetheless, great quote. And so basically how the 5 minute journal is set up is it says, "I am grateful for dot, dot, dot." And then it has three prompts. So you fill in three things that you're grateful for. Then it says, "What would make today great?" And then it has three prompts for it. And then daily affirmations, "I am," and you just, fill in the blank here. And then it also has nightly prompts, which is three things, three amazing things that happened today. You write it down. And then how could I have made today even better? From someone like myself who's always trying to constantly improve myself, that's a great question to ask yourself at the end of the day to kind of set yourself for the next day. However, I stopped using the morning routine, or the morning journal, or sorry, the 5 minute journal. But I really recommend it if you're just getting started or you don't know where to start with journaling. It's really was a great kind of intro to me getting started, and now I've kind of opened up my prompts based on the book The Miracle Morning. So I'll take you through a little bit about what The Miracle Morning talks about. And one of the things that I introduced into my daily routine with The Miracle Morning is he talks about starting your day with water. So, like, first thing in the morning, one of the first things I do every day is I chug a bunch of water. It's at least 8 ounces. It's probably closer to 12 or 16. And it's the first thing I do. I go to the bathroom. Sorry, that's the first thing that I do. And then I chug a bunch of water before I have my coffee, before I have breakfast, before I do anything else. Your body needs that. You've just had 6 to 8 hours. Hopefully you're getting plenty of sleep, closer to the 8 side, and you're not drinking water at that time. So you need to replenish your body with water. For me personally, I need water so bad. There's so many times where I'm like, man, I'm so tired. Why am I so tired? And I think back, oh, because I haven't had enough water today. And I just know that that's the root cause. And people often, go to coffee and they think that that's the answer and that they need the caffeine. Next time you're tired, try chugging a bunch of water and see how it makes you feel. Yes, drinking water throughout the day makes you go to the bathroom. That's the point. It keeps your body moving so that you're staying more alert and more energized. If you think about it, what do you do when you're sick? You drink lots of fluids. So why do we only do that when we're sick? You should be drinking lots of fluids every single day. Incorporating that into your daily routine drinking lots of water because it's flushing out your system. You're staying more healthy. I personally almost never get sick. It's pretty amazing. And I believe it's because of my daily habits, because of what I eat, it's because I exercise, it's because I drink lots of water. All of these things correlate into staying healthy. Now, within the routine and the Miracle Morning, which is a great book, and I highly recommend if you want to have a more set thing that you do every single morning, I recommend checking out the Miracle Morning. I know I've mentioned it previously, and it's by Hal Elrod, and he actually has a couple different versions of the book, which is pretty cool. So the one that I chose was for entrepreneurs, but they do have a number of other options. They have just the classic Miracle Morning. I believe, I don't know if it's out yet, but there's one specifically for teachers, which I think is really cool. So depending on what you do, I recommend that you check it out. If you are an entrepreneur, I definitely recommend the entrepreneur one. But if you're not, then I would go with the original classic, and you're going to find a ton of value. They've sold millions of copies, so it's a highly well-known book, and just really will help you get started into creating a morning routine. And we'll go into what I'm talking about today, and hopefully you'll consider incorporating some of the things that I talk about, because you don't necessarily have to incorporate all of them. And I think that's the big point, is a lot of times people feel overwhelmed with all of these things that they're supposed to do. So if I had any advice to implementation, is maybe pick like one or two of the things that I talk about today and consider putting that into your routine. And then as you start doing it, you may, oh, well, this kind of works well. I think I can incorporate this into my morning routine as well. So in the Miracle Morning, there's basically what he calls life savers. And the reason why it's savers is an acronym. The savers stands for silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. He makes a joke in the book, that obviously writing is something, but he did scribing because it fits the acronym. So pretty funny, but all of these things have been so valuable for me, and it's been really cool. So the first thing, like I said, I drink my water, and then I sit down with my coffee and I have my journal, and I do three things. Okay, the first thing is gratitude, the second thing is affirmations, and the third thing is goals. I write this down, and I have a book. And what I believe, so for one, the gratitude, okay? There is nothing more important than implementing gratitude into your daily routine. If there was one thing that you need to start doing right now, and you had to pick one of the things out of everything I'm talking about, this is it. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. It is so hard to complain about things when you start your day with gratitude. And not just starting your day, because once you start your day with it, then you tend to take it through the rest of the day. And you're just a happier person as you go throughout the day, because you start to realize that these little things don't matter because you're grateful for so many things. So, as I mentioned earlier with the 5 minute journal, it only has three things. And what I found to be very beneficial is actually writing a lot more than three things. And one thing, because it's a prompt, you only have three options. But what I love to do is really just write more things. Really write as many things that I can think of at that time. Now, just to give you a rough ballpark, it's usually around 5 to 10 different things. And what often happens is, you know, people always ask me, they're like, well, do you write the same thing? And the answer is yes, but also no. So the reason why it's kind of both is, well, one, yes, because I do write a lot of the same things that I'm grateful for. You know, I'm grateful to be alive. That's something that I write often. But one thing I'll also do is I'll often write, I'm grateful for specific people. And I'm grateful for my family, I'm grateful for my friends, but then I'll also, other times write very specific. I'm grateful for my mom, I'm grateful for my dad, I'm grateful for Dan, I'm grateful for James. So it varies based on kind of the day. But it's always beneficial, again, to think about this. And what happens is once you start to do it, and this is where I think people struggle, is they're like, well, I don't want to write the same things, or they're not sure to what continue to write. That's where the purpose is. And that's why I say the answer is also no, because you really want to think deeply about things that you can be grateful for. And when you have to really think about it, that's when it really has the beneficial effects, really having that power when you really have to think about it. I mean, you start to think about, well, I'm grateful to have a roof over my head. I'm grateful to have food. I'm grateful to have vision. I'm grateful to have my health. I'm grateful to have two legs. I'm grateful to have two arms. I'm grateful to be in America, and you really start to dive deep into all these little intricacies, and you're like, man, I am grateful for a lot of things. I have so many things to be grateful for. Do you see where this is going? Do you see the power of starting your day with all of these things and really, really diving deep into the things that you are grateful for? I cannot recommend this. I mean, if you picked one thing, again, this is the thing to do. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. And writing it down is so critical. Writing it down. So the one thing that I like about the like full prompt, where you're not actually just filling in the blank, where it's like a blank page, is that I will actually write out, I am grateful for, and then write it. So for every single thing I'm writing, I am grateful for this. I am grateful for this. I am grateful for this. And so, again, it's that repetition, repetition, where you are writing it. So I'd recommend don't doing it in your phone. I tried that one time. It didn't work. You got to write it down. There is something to be said about actually writing it out. And so it has that power effect. And there's more things going on here than meets the eye. There's the subliminal messaging that's going on, and I'm going to talk about in the next section also here with writing it out. I am grateful for, I am grateful for. You're getting that repetition. And so to lead into the next thing with that subliminal message, the next thing is your affirmations. So I feel like affirmations can sometimes seem a little weird when you first get started. I know for me, it was a little hard to swallow, I guess, but it can be very, very powerful. And people go, well, what are your affirmations? What are you thinking of? What are you writing for your affirmations? So basically, an affirmation is your I am statement. So it's I am this. And what I've found to be very powerful is picking an affirmation that is focused around your limiting beliefs. So for me, for example, and I started this a while ago when I was actually still using the 5-minute journal. And originally I tried doing different affirmations each day, because it was just one affirmation. And so for each different day, I would do something different. But I noticed that there was one thing that I had a very, very huge limiting belief on. And that was being an entrepreneur and what that really meant. And I just didn't feel like I was an entrepreneur, even though I was doing so many things that entrepreneurs were doing. And I was, implementing these strategies, and I was building clients, and I was working with people, and I was, doing a number of things that fit that strategy. But it was just such a clear limiting belief for me. So I just started writing it. I am an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur. And the more that I did it, more things started to come to fruition, which I think is really cool. Because at that time, I didn't feel like I was an entrepreneur because I was still, 9 to 5 in a full-time job. And, you know, right now I have my own business. I transitioned from what was a full-time job to now the company that I was working for is now hiring my company to work for them. So I'm still doing a lot of the same work that I was doing before, but they're paying my business, which is pretty amazing. I'm totally extremely grateful for that opportunity to make that transition, because I know that this is a rare circumstance. and they're really setting me up for success. And I will forever be grateful. So if anyone from the Hurricane team is listening, thank you. I love you all so much and appreciate you so much. And so again, back to the I am an entrepreneur. I think that whatever you feel that you limit yourself for, or and again, it can be a goal in a sense where it's like I am healthy. Maybe you're trying to be fit, or I am successful. That's such a great one. I am successful. And I do write that one often because the definition of success is there is none. And I think that's a struggle because so many people are chasing success but don't actually define what success is. And for me, it's so hard to define, and it to me is not something that can be defined. And though I'm chasing what I call sometimes success, I still consider myself to be successful. And if I could really define one thing of success, I would actually contribute it to being happy. Because to me, there's no greater success than being happy every single day. And I was actually having this conversation with someone last week where I mentioned my dad and his job. He would drive an hour every day to work. He worked at a bank. Nothing flashy. But the thing about my dad was he was always at every single sporting event. He was a coach for many sporting events, one of the best. If you've ever had him as a coach, and I don't just say that because I'm his son. It's what everyone told me afterwards. And, so people, for him to be able to do what he did, though he wasn't making hundreds of thousands of dollars and been able to do all these fancy things, which so many people are chasing with success, he had a great family. He was always there for me. Try not to get emotional here. And that's something that he, in my opinion, was extremely and is extremely successful. I wanted to take a moment and pause real quick. uh, I realized that the way that I was just speaking, it seemed as if my dad is no longer here, which is not true. My dad is alive and well and is still an amazing influence on me. Still works at the bank that he worked at when I was younger, hoping to retire soon. And he still has a huge influence on me every single day and such a huge impact, which is why I was getting a little emotional because he just, is such an important person. And I'm so grateful that he has been there for me for as long as he has and continues to be there for me. And I'm just so grateful for that. Something that many people would want so badly. However, when we think of success, we often think of it as some type of financial goal or financial thing, but I just don't believe that's it. And it often brings me back to the goals that I'm chasing and the things that I'm chasing. And it brings me back to, the aspect of creating a family and building a family and the importance of that. And part of my goal is in what I'm doing now and being young and not having as many responsibilities is not that, hey, I want to be working 80 hours a week for the rest of my life and it's okay because I'm doing my own thing. It's not that. It's that if I do these things now within my own business, it's setting me up so that because again, nothing's guaranteed, have my own family, I have a business that allows me the flexibility to do the same things that my dad was able to do and be able to be there all the time for my kids if they need it and, be able to be their baseball coach and things of that sort. And so maybe you're in this situation. Maybe you have a family that you're, developing and you're worried that maybe you don't have the business success that you're looking. This isn't a time for you to think at what you do have and think about how great it is to just be able to have a kid, a kid that's looking up to you, a kid that you're going to be there for, take care of, be there for holidays and go out on Halloween and all of these cool things that come with, being a parent. So, success really is hard to define in that regard, but that's how I would define it. And though I'm still going to keep chasing, my goals, I still believe that I'm going to be and am successful right now. And I know that word, like I said, gets thrown around a lot, but we're all successful in our own way. And to me, it's similar to you define it. So, and it's a belief, so you are successful. You just have to believe that you're successful. I shared this quote recently on my story, and I was at an event this past weekend where I shared it again with this networking group, which was great. We did like a dinner. It was really cool. Um, and what it is we don't do things that are meaningful. We find meaning in what we do. And I feel that that's so powerful. And that's why I wanted to continue to share it, because it's the same thing. I mean, our happiness is based on our perspective. Everything is based on how we view things. Viewing yourself as successful, viewing yourself as happy, and viewing yourself as grateful, all of these things, again, is up to you. It's not based on what you have or what you do. It's about your mental state and just believing in those things. So if you don't believe you're happy or you don't believe you're successful, you can literally change that right now as you're listening to this. You can change that thought process. Okay. And it takes time. It's not something that's necessarily going to happen overnight. It definitely takes some time to really shift the mind, and that's where the daily routines come in to shift back. And that's where this really comes into play. The repetition of doing this on a regular, consistent basis. Maybe your affirmation is I am happy. That can be your affirmation. Maybe you feel like you're not happy, and then all of a sudden you keep writing every day, I am happy, I am happy. And guess what? You keep doing it, guess what? You're going to believe it. Because you can say it and not believe it. But if you keep doing it and you keep saying it and you keep writing it, it's going to have that effect. It's going to turn that attempt into, what you're trying to accomplish into what you actually have. And that's really the power of the I am statement, the power of positive affirmations. Now, to move on to the next section with goals. And goals are so great. And goals aren't mentioned in the 5-minute journal, but I've incorporated goals into my writing style based on the Miracle Morning. And to me, goals are so important to have, and it doesn't have to be anything entrepreneur. I know that some of you may be listening and you're not a business owner and don't want to be a business owner, and that's completely fine. But you should still 100% have goals, things that you're pushing for, things that you want. And what I have actually kind of experimented with. So originally, when I first started writing out my goals, I wrote out all of my goals. And it was really good because I really had to think about it, and it really set things up for both the short term and the long term, thinking goals that were achievable in a short amount of time, but also thinking about really big goals that are, kind of out of reach, not out of reach, but that are bigger and on harder and are really going to take that effort to reach. And then I transitioned into writing just a few goals so that I could focus on what I was trying to accomplish. And now I've actually gone back to writing them all out. So if I was going to recommend anything when it comes to writing your goals out, I recommend writing them all out. And, because it helps kind of gain perspective into what you're trying to reach, both short term and long term. And the reason why we write out our goals every day is because it keeps it top of mind, and it helps us to make the decisions on a daily routine to create those goals. So one of the things that's mentioned in Atomic Habits is that goals aren't even important if you're not implementing the daily activities that help get you closer to your goals. But you can't implement the daily activities that you want to accomplish if you don't have the goals set in place. So for example, if you have your goals and one of your goal is to lose 20 pounds, Now you're writing every day, I want to lose 20 pounds by this date. So that requires you that day, you just wrote out your goals that day of trying to lose 20 pounds. Now, when the opportunity comes between a healthy choice and a non healthy choice, you're going to be more likely to make that healthy choice because that day you're thinking about your goal. And so keeping it top of mind is going to make it so much more powerful and make it more likely that you're going to happen. And, I think it's a good variation to have both big goals and small goals that you can achieve. And sometimes the smaller goals are more important. Maybe you start with, hey, I want to lose 5 pounds, you know? And I think that that's such a big thing that often people think of when it comes to goals, that it has to be these massive, massive goals, oh, you should shoot for the stars, the magic of thinking big and all of these things. Yes, that's great. But it kind of sucks when you don't achieve those goals because they're so big. And, we live in a world of instant gratification. And, I'm not saying that you get that instant gratification here, but in order to keep the momentum going, it's important that you accomplish those short-term goals, those short things, because it keeps you going for the longer ones. So when you're thinking about your goals, really think about some short-term ones and then long-term ones. So, maybe you have, I want to lose 100 pounds, but you also have, I want to lose 5 pounds, by the end of 2 weeks, so that you can accomplish one, but setting yourself up for the bigger one down the line. So you're seeing the power and the potential of implementing these in your daily routine, writing out these goals. If you want to get your goals, if you want to know where you're going, you got to write it down every day. You know, if you got to have that destination to know that the path you want to take. And again, these goals may change, and that's completely fine, as you progress, but it's the action that defines where you want to go, and figuring out and trying different things. I often hear like people are not sure where they're going or what they're trying to do. Well, you got to go do stuff to figure out what you want to do. It's not just some magic thing that comes down and hits you in the head. The example that I love to share is the first time I ever spoke on stage. It was 2016, and I guess I can go even earlier than that. So before the event was even happening, I we were in a conference room. We were talking about, hey, we need speakers, and I said, hey, I can speak about social media. And at the time, all I really cared about was getting more money. I was like, this is great. I'll speak, and then they'll have to pay me more because it'll increase me as a valued employee. Like that was my whole thought. I hope you don't judge me for that. I think it's something that we can relate to, and that was something that I wanted to do. And so it got closer and closer, and they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Yep." I did hesitate. So it wasn't that quick of a yep. It was like, they were trying to give me an out. And I said, nope, I want to do it. And it was at that time, it was 25 minutes, which seemed like an eternity. I hadn't spoken in front of an audience before of that size ever. And I hadn't spoken in front of an audience at all since college. So at that point, it had been about 3 years since giving any type of formal presentation. And it's funny, I was in the back of the room getting ready to go up, and I was so nervous. During lunch, I was in my hotel room, and I was just practicing, just getting it down, trying to make sure it was perfect. I was so nervous. My heart was beating out of my chest. And when I got up there, I was a little choked up to start, which most people probably didn't even notice. When I speak a lot, I often start off like that. It's like the first couple sentences. I feel it, and maybe other people don't notice it. But once I get going, that's when I it goes away. And I think that's how a lot of people are. And a lot of what you do is you just got to get started, and then it becomes easier. But it's all about taking that first step. And the reason I share this story is because when I came off that stage, everything had changed. It literally had changed my life before me. And I realized that this was something that I wanted to continue to do. This was something that it just felt right. And it felt like I had a knack for it. And people told me how good a job I did. Hopefully, they weren't just filling my head, but I just came to really enjoy it. Enjoy, being up there and educating people on the things that I knew. And prior to that, I was spending a lot of times behind the scenes, behind the camera, and behind helping to run the events. And all of a sudden, I'm jumping on stage in the public eye, and that education aspect was what I found really powerful. And that's a big part of this podcast, and wanting to just continue to share value and teach. And that's something that I'm extremely passionate about. When so many people came up to me after and said that they really appreciate what I shared, they were asking questions, and really just engaging, and I realized, like, this is something I want to do and continue doing, and now I'm pursuing that full time, where I really want to continue to try and get on stages and educate people on anything that I know. It's all about just sharing value, and I feel like I have a lot to share. And that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do with my life, is to just continue to educate people and share my insights so that they can grow, so that they can improve, whether it be their businesses or improve their lives. And that's really, a big mission in mine into, why I'm doing what I'm doing, in case you didn't know already. But that's really just a quick story on, mildly quick, about how I kind of got my started. But to back to shifting to the goals again, I would have never known that I liked speaking and that I had a passion for teaching if I had not done it that one time, if I had not stuck it out. Imagine if they asked me that second time and I bailed and was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling it. I don't think I should do it. And they probably would have been like, oh, okay, you know, or, because maybe they were looking for an out, but maybe they were nervous about me doing it. Um, and they wanted to give me an opportunity to get out because they didn't know how I was going to perform. It was in front of a huge audience, and but they already told me I could, so they couldn't tell me no at that point. I mean, I guess they could have, and I don't think that was the case. I think they were very supportive. And when I came off the stage, I remember looking at the staff table and seeing one of my coworkers, Nicole, just having this like huge grin and smile, just pure happiness for me. It was one of the most amazing feelings, and something I will never forget. That first time coming off and seeing that look. It's amazing. So again, so back to the goals again. You got to try new things, try new things to be able to figure out where you want to go. Now, back to again the life savers and different things. So one of the things, again, I mentioned the lifesavers are silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. Silence is so important, and it's often hard depending on our lives, depending on having kids and things of that sort, which is why in the Miracle Morning, he talks about waking up super early so that you have that time. You have that silence. And when I'm sitting down and I'm writing out my journal, I have that silence in my coffee. I'm not like putting music on, or I'm not doing it while the TV is on or anything like that. It is just me and completely my thoughts, and the value is certainly there. And now the visualization technique, that's something that I haven't fully implemented. I've done a few times, and it can be extremely powerful, and I can see how doing that daily, and I'd like to incorporate it more daily into my routine. So one of the visualizations that I did recently was, I thought about myself in a stadium of people, and they were all there to see me speak. And I was backstage, kind of peeping out, looking out, seeing everyone, seeing the lights, and seeing kind of just darkness. Because if you've ever seen big stages, you can't really see the people in the audience, so it's just kind of shadows out there, and big lights. So I'm standing out there, and then I come out, walking out there, and just people are cheering and excited to hear me speak, and looking at the smiling faces in the front row, and maybe high-fiving some people. And then I get up there, and I'm standing in the center of the stage, and all eyes on me, and it starts to get real quiet, and I take a big deep breath, and then that's kind of where I had the visualization stop. Um, But it's really cool when you do that because you really start to feel yourself in that position. If you can really think of all the details that I did, if you notice, I'm talking about what I'm seeing, I'm talking about what I'm hearing, talk about what I'm feeling, feeling the energy in the room. So there's so much power to the visualization. I hope to kind of implement that into my daily routine as well. And one of the other lifesavers here is exercise. Exercise is it's so important. I mean, if you've listened to the last 2, 3 podcast episodes, you know how important exercise is. I mean, if you follow these influencers and other people in the space, they talk about how important exercise is, getting the body moving. Now, personally, for me, I think running is the best thing. Even if you hate it, James talked about it in the last episode, how you get that runner's high of really just getting out there and getting the body moving, and it needs to be done. You're exercising the first thing in the morning. I know for me, I was always a late I always worked out late, and when I started working out in the morning, total game changer. So if maybe you're somebody who likes to work out after work, consider switching it. Consider getting up an extra hour earlier, hour and a half earlier. Maybe that's 4:30 for you, who knows? But and getting up and starting your day with that feels so good to have that accomplishment before your day even starts, where you've already achieved things that you want to do. And I think that's where all of this comes into play, you know, where you're writing out your goals and you're writing out everything. You're doing potentially your meditation. So that's another thing that goes with the silence in the lifesavers, meditation, which I highly recommend you practice as well. And doing all of these things first thing in the morning because you've already accomplished them. So all of these lifesavers that are listed here are all to be done, first thing in the morning. And it's all about, if you need to accomplish it and you're like, I don't have time for this, it means you need to get up earlier so that you can accomplish all of these things. Now, they mentioned in the book too that exercise, maybe you don't have time to exercise or don't have time to go for a run, but even just getting the body moving and doing like 10 jumping jacks is beneficial. One thing I like to do is I like to stretch. So I'll just do like a full stretch. And it really, again, it like release the body, makes you feel good. I like to stretch before I go to bed also. So then I feel more refreshed when I do that. Because again, and when you're laying in bed, you're, potentially cramped up. And so by stretching before, it loosens you up. You're going to sleep better that way. So I recommend implementing that as well. And then the last thing again, there's reading and there's scribing. So I'm still working on incorporating reading into my daily routine, and I tend to prefer the audio books and the audio experience, the podcasts, but I know the power of just reading, and I know that if you start with 10 minutes a day, you end up doing more. So again, it's something that I'm going to try to continue to implement. But again, like I said, it takes time to implement all of these things. It takes time to, so many people want to do everything right away, and that's so much harder to achieve. And if you just start with a few things and then as you go, you'll be able to add more things. So don't think you need to do all of these things. Start with one and just slowly do more. And then the last thing is scribing, which again, that goes to everything I talked about with writing your goals and your gratitude and that sense. So that is my morning routine for the most part. I think I've explained. I think that's everything. And I hope that this episode really finds you well. I really enjoyed doing this. I really enjoyed the solo episode, and I'll continue to do solo episodes. It's a little poetic too that it's episode number 5, which is my favorite number. I was born on the 5th. So I think that's pretty awesome as well. And I just have a lot to share, and I hope that you enjoy what I've been sharing. If you enjoyed this episode, please write me a review. I really appreciate that. That helps. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe. And the support that I continue to receive is truly overwhelming. I don't even know what to say most of the time when somebody does something for me, even as simple as just sharing one of my posts. It means the world to me. It really does. I'm so grateful anytime someone just gives me a like on social media. It seems crazy, I know, but I know that people don't always give out likes that easily. So, just giving a like, giving a comment, that you're watching or listening just really means a lot to me. And so I want to thank you so much for your time, taking the time to hang out with me. And remember, let's keep growing together.